was thinking how. Oh, this thought has a bit escaped me. I was thinking, firstly, odd that the British Empire is not pushing back against this stuff. I would like to see them.
No, it's their policy.
It is legit their policy.
Why
correct.
is it their policy? But like that, what's happening? Maybe a lot of these activists, the people that are pushing these things, are childless people trying to parent other humans, because like when you're an adult, you're like, your kid starts crying. I know you're sad, I know you're upset, but I'm doing this for your own good. And they may actually be doing that because you're taming a wild one. Yeah. You're basically like, you can't eat all the sugar. I know it's sad, I know it sucks, but trust me. So these people are doing it for the other people. I know it's not the language you're used to, but trust me, it's for your own good. Like, have some kids. Gain some humility. Stop trying to control people.
I was thinking about this. Like, why don't you just let the kid eat the tube of cookie dough? No, for real.
Because it's addictive.
No, because a kid would barf all over himself and be like, I never want to do it again.
No, but then they keep eating it. They go back to it like a dog pukes and then they keep eating it. Hey,
I learned my lesson,
experience.
Man. When I remember I moved to LA and I was hungry and I ate a whole pizza to myself. And I was like, that was so good. And then I got sick and I was like, I'm never doing this again. I made a mistake. And I was an adult when that happened.
I made that mistake as a kid over and over again.
But I think there is a point there. It's because it's what we've said before. The socialists don't have kids; they have yours.
Correct. Like if you think about it, like from that analogy, like you treat your family as like a commune, right? You treat your friend group as a socialist circle. The wider you go, the more right-wing thing you go. Like you treat the country as like you want to get the best out of people, so you want there needs to be like a capitalist structure. But for someone who doesn't have a kid or family or friends for that matter, they want to enforce their control over the next immediate group of people that they see, and in this case, that's the rest of the citizen of the country.
Yeah, it's probably naturally satisfying to have a little bit of communism, a little bit of socialism.
Correct. Yeah, like because you have a right side of your brain and a left side of your brain. You need that balance just to be a functioning human being, and you use the left way of thinking for the people who you actually care about or you have something to share with, like the people from your same religious circle or your friends or your family. But the people who you do not know, like strangers, you just want the best out of each other. So you think of them like, hey, let's be symbiotic, and you get the best out of me and I get the best out of you, and there's money involved. So there comes like a capitalist way of thinking. But if you don't have any kids, family, or like a religious circle, you don't have anyone to use that left way of thinking on. So you subject that on the rest of the people.
Have you guys seen those groomer bills? They haven't. I think it's Florida banned them. Yeah. It was like, the schools wanted to like, groom children into various ideas or whatever. I'm saying that very specifically. I'm using the phrase groomer on purpose because what the left is really effective at is propaganda. And what they're saying is they're calling it "Don't Say Gay."
Oh, yeah, I heard about.
Right, you've heard of that.
Wait, I don't know that. What's that?
So it's just their bills saying that schools shouldn't be having like sex ed for kids as part of the curriculum. It should be something special or not in the schools at all. It should be something the parents decide. And that's, my attitude on it is like, yeah, I don't know. The parents should figure out if they want to talk to their kids about this stuff. So the left has very, they're good at this stuff. They call it the "Don't Say Gay." So that's clearly not what the bill is. But now all of a sudden that's what the left is putting out there. And when I say groomer bill, you guys are like, huh, what's that? It's because the right is ineffective at messaging.
Correct.
They don't have any of that stuff. But in these schools, indoctrination is the key to what the left is doing. They don't have kids, they have yours, which means if they can get your kids to believe whatever they believe, in 20 years, this country will be whatever their ideology is. It's starting with millennials. All the stuff rising up.
And you're right on point, Tim. We actually did, me and Sonny, we produced our second documentary was called Indoctrination Nation, where we looked at critical race theory in the state of Virginia, specifically Loudoun County. One of the things that I was shocked about was that these kids would be like 12 years old, and they'll go to the library, and their librarian would tell them, hey, you should read this book. It's called Rick. And Rick will be a story about a girl who then transitioned into a boy. And all this is happening without the parents' knowledge. Yeah. It wasn't until those kids come actually home and say, "Hey, mom, this is what I learned," and then the parents look at it like, "Wait, what?" So it's a little bit of actually that it's that indoctrination at a very young age, and it's doing behind the parents' back. Also, in my home state of California, we had a state assembly member by the name of Scott Wiener, who actually is introducing a bill which actually might pass, which is scary, a bill that's going to lower the age of vaccination consent down from the age of 18 down to 12 years old. So could you imagine that if you're a 12-year-old or 13-year-old if your mom says you can't get vaccinated, or because obviously she's your parent, but now you could finally go behind your parents' back and still do this, and give more power to the state.
Look, I gotta say, I blame a lot of the parents, 100%. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard where it's like, I sent my daughter to college and now she hates me. And it's like, why would you do that? Why would you not pay attention to what you were doing to your children? Look, I get it, man. These cult weirdos are the problem. But I got to say to parents out there, you didn't look into the school.
Right.
You didn't go and visit. You didn't ask about the curriculum. You didn't check in on what other people who are going to the school are doing and what they're planning and what's happened to their lives. You're not doing any research. It's crazy to me how many parents are like, I just put my kid in school and forget about it. And then when their kid comes back and they're like, I can't believe you're learning this. Did you not take any active role in what's happening to your kids?
That version of, for lack of a better word, helicopter parenting is kind of a privilege if you think about it, right? So if there's
wait, helicopter parenting?
It's for lack of a better word, I said.
I'm not talking about parents like micromanaging their kids' lives. I'm talking about their parents knowing about the college they're sending their kids to, instead of being like, I signed the paper, bye. It's like, shouldn't you be like, I looked into these schools, here's what I think is best, good luck to you.
That's fair. But what I'm trying to say is that's not possible for, a family who's just trying to get by, or like a single mom who's working a job already and who's just sending their kid to public school expecting that everything's going to be an autopilot. Like, that's not possible for her. And
where did this idea come from? Because it's a new idea that you could use schools as a daycare center and you weren't responsible for what, I thought the government I thought the government's institutionalized learning facilities was going to teach my kid to be responsible adults who got good jobs. Did it ever occur to anybody that when the government is subsidizing an institutionalized learning facility, the number one function of any entity is to preserve itself. So they're going to indoctrinate your kids to want to preserve their machine. If you want your kids to retain your values, you are responsible and no one else. And if you send your kids to these colleges, you are responsible for them coming back with shaved heads and like pierced eyes or something.
But what would you say to a mom like that who doesn't have any other option than to send her kid to a public school?
I think that the challenge today is how luxurious we all live. Excuse me. You go back 100 years, this wasn't an issue. Well, maybe a little bit more than 100 years. I
would say even when I was in high school, it wasn't an issue. I mean, I wasn't getting taught the stuff that these kids. I mean, I was basic stuff.
You were still in an institutionalized learning facility.
Yep.
Absolutely, your teachers had liberal lefty values. Even going back 20 or 30 years, conservative parents put their kids in schools and their kids came out liberal. It's just that liberal has gone further and further left as of recent history. So, and the internet has really accelerated this. But there was a period where parents didn't have refrigerators, didn't have cell phones, didn't have the internet, didn't have cars, and life sucked. But as much as it did relative to today, they would take responsibility for their kids would work with them. The problem now is when someone says, I have to have a job, well, it's because you want to maintain modern living standards, which I totally get and respect. Who wouldn't? Why would? Who wants to go live in a cave and try and forage for berries? Not to mention, it's really hard because property is basically owned by everybody. But there is the big challenge. The system is ossifying around you to such a degree, you will have no choice but to send your kids to institutionalized learning facilities where they will be taught to hate you, hate everything about you and your family and your history, your country and your culture. And if you don't like it, too bad, because your job is more important. Living in a house with air conditioning and a refrigerator absolutely is more important. And I mean that. You're going to starve to death. You're going to have no food. You're going to have dirty drinking water and live on the streets. No, you're going to have to live in this system as prescribed. And that means the state will own your kids unless you can figure something out, unless you stand up and you vote. And like we saw in Virginia, Youngkin, comes in or whatever. So I'm not saying it's the end is nigh. I'm just saying this is the system that has been built all around us. And it is a terrifying one because how do you escape it when you are trapped in it? You can't just go, to the woods, as much as I might jokingly say, like get out there and go to the forest. I mean, like you literally can't just live off the land anymore. It's owned by everybody. There's rules, there's laws, there's regulations. If you are well off enough and you save up enough money, you can buy land in the middle of nowhere. It's not impossible. You can buy a house out in West Virginia for $100K. You get a loan, you put down $1,000 if you get a good loan. There you go. Move out there. You'll work a lot more. life won't be as easy, but at least you'll know your kids will retain your values and won't come back with their heads shaved, believing insane things.
I was looking at the history of public education, modern education in the American system. Comes from a guy named John Dewey. He was one of the founders of what's called the progressive education movement. And he believed that schools, this is from Wikipedia, that were not only a place for students to gain content knowledge, but also a place for them to learn how to live. So to this day, the schools are still teaching kids how to think. And I agree, teaching kids how to learn is important. But when you're teaching them how to think, as in like how to be racist, I think the aberration has grown bigger than the product at this point.
You know,
I mean, I think, maybe I'm wrong here, but at the end of the day, all this still goes down to the parents. So, even if, at the end of the day, with the world that we're living in here in America, you're going to send out your kids to this, whether it's wokeist, leftist stuff at school, work, it's going to be all around them. So it's up to the family to kind of build those structure and values before you kind of head out to the real world. That's just my opinion. I think, what my parents did with me, I think helped me out. So when I went to the real world, saw some of this stuff, I'm like, oh no, F that. So like when I went out to the real world, one thing that was getting taught a lot when I was in community college was the white privilege thing. So, I would have white professors or white other students tell me how I'm oppressed. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, my dad's an immigrant who escaped the Civil War. He just taught me that I have to work hard and that's how I get ahead. I'm not, we're not ahead because we're not white or anything. So I think it's at the end of the day, no matter with all the propaganda around us and everything, it still just comes down to mom and dad and the values that you're getting taught in your household.
Yeah, I can't imagine that the school's job is to teach people how to learn, how to live. Come on, John Dewey says the school is the place for them to learn how to live. That's the parents' job, is to teach their kids
to be
how
honest,
to live.
I never heard the word white privilege till I was 19 years old, 20 years old. Just because it's just in my house, I was never taught that. My mom and dad were like, hey, you have to grind, you have to work. My dad, the mindset he taught me was first one in the office, last one out. So when I was raised like that, I just never heard the word white privilege. I didn't even know it was a thing till I was 19 years old in community college, and kids were like, hey, Jorge, you're in community college because of white privilege. And I was like, no, I'm not. I just messed around in high school, and then that's why I'm here, and I deserve it.
I see the value to organized education because I imagine before John Dewey was around that it was just madness. Like one schoolhouse would be teaching this, the other one would be teaching this. They'd say the word means this thing, they say the word means that. So they developed a centralized authority that basically tells us like this is the official information. But now you see how horrible that can become when they feed you crap.
Another thing which like the conservatives left the ball was this whole concept of they will get reality checked once they graduate and face the real world.
Oh yeah,
because that never happened for most of these kids.
I was wrong about that for sure.
Yeah.
I was saying that, and what happens is they get out and they all stand around looking at each other, going, "The world isn't the way it's supposed to be, so we're going to force it."
And the way we're going to do it is by taking over the HR departments of corporate America. And that's what gets overlooked so much. Like people try to find cause and effect. That's the cause right there.
Well, the laws. Look, you've got the civil rights law, which we like, but they take it to the extreme. They say, one of the arguments put forward by the left is about separate but equal when it comes to race. Mm-hmm. And then they say all of those arguments pertain to gender as well. So if the argument was that, different races were different, therefore they get equal access to a bathroom, but there's different bathrooms based on race, why the same for gender? If the genders are are equal under the law, how can you say separate but equal? It's an argument actually being made by the left over the gender issue. And based on the interpretation of the law, they have a legal argument. So there has to be a reinterpretation, or there has to be a judicial review or something. But so long as these laws exist, they will exploit them in ways they were never intended. They will change language to retroactively change the laws without any real democratic process. These cult members are good at what they do in terms of manipulating the system.
They're really good. Like if you think about it right now, it is almost synonymous to a layman. Like there's no difference between equity and equality, right? People just throw around the word diversity and equity like it means nothing. Like it used to be when I was in school, it was diversity and equality. And we were like, I knew what those words meant. And I know what equality and equity is and what the difference is.
Yeah,
and
equity is communism.
Yeah, equity is equality of outcome and equality is equality of opportunities. As simple as that. But right now, to a layman, there is no difference.
Right.
Because the left has been so good at messaging.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.